I had always had this fantasy of what it meant to be a doctor, which I guess was derived in part from my father and in part from all those TV series I watched when I was growing up. See, the thing about medicine is that it's useful. I mean, you can't really argue with whether it's socially valid or not. And this fantasy, well, this fantasy included, being listened to and intervening in people's lives, all for the good. And that was a very potent fantasy for a woman.
All my life, I'd been interested in art, so I decided I was going to enroll at the university near the small farming community where I lived. And I did that, and I became interested in sculpture, specifically welding. And that's what I do. Almost everything I do is welded. And it looks easy, but it isn't. It's very hard, and it takes hours and hours because you're dealing with materials that are obstinate and obdurate and unyielding and hard. And you have to be real careful not to blow yourself up, too.
There are about 25 women out of 25,000 carpenters in Chicago. It's something we chose, but it's not ideal.
One of the things I find interesting about being an intellectual is that I spent all those years reading all those books about white men and the journeys of white men, knowing I needed to speak that language, yet also knowing that that world was not about me.
There are 7 women cable splicers in my garage, and we're the ones that go into the manholes and up on the poles laying cable for the public utilities. And we thought as more and more women got to be hired that they would continue and maybe even get to be a 50-50 ratio, men and women. But they hired 7 women. That was the magic number. That was the quota for the government. When they hit that number, they stopped.
None of my friends went to college when I was in high school, but I got this scholarship. I guess I got good grades for some reason. I got the scholarship to this school, Shimer College. I went there for about a semester and found it totally boring. So came back to Chicago and got a job in this big national insurance company as a secretary. It wasn't really a secretary. It was more like a file clerk transferring numbers from one page to another. It was more boring than you could possibly imagine. One day I'm looking through this company newsletter and I see this full-page ad of a woman hanging off a truck with the company logo on it and saying that there's new opportunities for women truckers. So I thought, shit, this could be a piece of cake.
I started medical school in 1966, and at that time, there were 5 of us in the class. After the first year, 2 women were asked to stay back and 1 was asked to leave. Percentage-wise, that was just incredibly high, and it happened in every class. You couldn't quite figure out how they got you, but one thing was, you know, that you always stood out. In a lecture, if one of the men wasn't there, it was never noticed. But if one of us wasn't there, it was like a neon sign saying absent. You know, I had this best friend in college who had better grades than I did and scored higher on her medical boards. And she was denied admission to any medical school. And I went through a lot of searching about why was I the one who was let in? What did it mean that I fit some male admissions officer's image of what a woman doctor ought to be like? You know, why was I the one that was okay?
For years and years, I waitressed, just trying to get along, trying to survive, trying to figure out what to do with my life and raise my children.
People have this glorified idea about carpentry or construction work or truck driving, whatever. This fantasy for a woman. But it's really hard work. And we got into it because we had no choice. It was either should women's work for shit pay or should man's work for more pay. And I'm a single parent, so that's important to me.
There's a real male camaraderie that exists in medical school, and that has to exist if you're going to survive. There was this guy in my class when I was a freshman who was heartsick over this woman in Minneapolis. He was practically flunking out, and the woman's mother didn't want her to get married, which is what he wanted. He wanted to be with her. I'd say 90% of the freshman class marched practically en masse to Minneapolis to plead with this girl's mother to let her be married, let her sacrifice her daughter so this guy could pull himself out of his slump. And it worked, you know. They were married, she moved back to Chicago. He began to get straight A's. It was this real success story.
They would lift these huge loaded mail bags and try to swing them around and hit me. I mean, shit like this was going on. They'd say things like, my wife is in the hospital having our 3rd baby and I'm letting the dishes pile up because, man, that's woman's work. Or they draw cocks and balls in the grime on my truck windows. I mean, stuff like this was happening all the time. And I got this attitude that I could stand, you know, stand in shit up to my eyeballs and not let anything happen to me, you know. I was just like in my lock device. 'Cause I wasn't gonna let him scare me off. And that was good for me. I needed to do that. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
I ripped open my hand a little bit.
Did you wash it off?
Yeah, like you told me.
Good.
I hate hospitals. I really appreciate this.
Let me see.
It's not too bad, huh?
No, let's wash it off a little.
I don't usually cut myself this way.
How'd you get my number?
It was in the book. So's your name. Oh,
It's deep, and it's in an awkward place. I think I'm gonna put a couple of stitches in, okay? I think it would be best.
I have stitchophobia. I mean, can't you do like one of those butterfly, you know, can't stand with the stitches.
Okay, let me try, all right?
Okay,
If it
good.
works, fine. If not, then we'll go to stitches.
Okay.
Come on and sit down. Would you just hold that a second? You gotta keep this clean, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Give you some extra tape and gauze.
Oh, good.
Okay, just move the fingers. Okay.
Beautiful. You're a real doctor.
That's what they tell me. Okay.
So,
Did you have dinner yet?
I was making it when I cut myself.
Oh, yeah?
Pretty nauseous. For me to lose my appetite is something, too.
Looks pretty good over there, actually. You know what? I think I'm gonna go on and make you some dinner.
Forget it.
No, it's okay. Eggs and...
Oh, no, really? Listen. I have a refrigerator full of beer. I'll order in a pizza.
I want to eat it with you, okay? I'll stay for dinner. I'm real happy, too.
Nuts.
It's not
You don't
that
have to
nuts.
fix my handy. I'm making it.
It's all right. So what's it like to drive a truck?
Actually, once I started getting used to the job, I was just this eager beaver around town, you know. I was just making points for myself everywhere. See, because the people that I delivered to were not directly threatened by a female's presence, being a truck driver, you know. So, I mean, my boss would get phone calls all the time saying how I was cheery and lifting, and actually, I was so thrilled just to get some good feelings from people on my job after what would occur every morning that I was like, I was in seventh heaven.
1967, I think it was. 67, 68, yeah. Another woman and I entered a competition at the school. And there were about 53 people that entered the competition, and we were the only women, and we won first and second place. But they wouldn't let us have all the money. This is an honest-to-God story. They kept most of the money. They let us have the money for our materials, but they wouldn't give us the prize money. I'll never forget it. I went up there, I was all dressed up, and they said, "Is this for your husband?" And I said, "No, I don't have a husband. My name is Chris Riley." And the guy went, "Oh." It was funny. Even then I knew that.
You have to be twice as good to get any place. But if you're very good, the men you work with might become threatened. You walk a very fine line. And your success depends on someone else's assessment of your work. Now, this is true of men too, but they're judged truly by their peers in a way that women and blacks, at least at this point in history, are not.
Hey, hi. How are you? Fine. How's your hand? Oh. Oh, God.
The grease is good for it somehow,
Oh, yeah?
you know.
I won't look. What are you doing?
Just changing the plugs and greasing up the parts, changing the oil, you know.
I don't know, really.
So what are you doing?
Oh, I'm out running.
How far do you run a day?
I do about, 4 miles every 3 days.
That's great.
Yeah. Do you run?
I do 5, yeah, sometimes, but slow. You know, I need to run. I love it. I haven't run in a long time.
Do you want to run next Wednesday? Do you have off?
Yeah, I don't work till 3.
Great. We could run in the morning.
Okay, great.
All right. Listen, I got to keep moving. Will you give me a call Wednesday morning?
Yeah.
Terrific.
One day last year, a woman came up to me and said, "Anna, I got to thank you because I realized that you opened this whole thing up, and it's because of you that things are a little easier around here." And I was really blown away for having, you know, a little bit of appreciation happen. Not that I think I'm a saint or anything, but I'll tell you, For 5, and even now, you know, there was no glory in it. It was really lonely.
My best friend on the job is this older black man. I mean, he's the only black man on the site because until recently, the trades have been very closed to black people. I mean, other than myself, he's the only other black carpenter that I know. The first day on the site, he whispered to me, "I know you can do this job. My mother worked in the cotton fields for 50 years. I know women can work hard." He's the best carpenter on the job. And I can learn a lot from him when I get a chance to work with him.
I was the second woman hired in my garage. Karen was the first. And naturally, we wanted to work together. There was sort of a camaraderie just because we were the only 2 women in the garage. And they wouldn't let us at first. When we finally got to work together, they kind of pitted us against each other. They would give us both difficult jobs to do, and it was a real competitive thing about who could do a better job. We would, you know, one was expected to do one better than the other. But what we would do is both of us would go do her job, and both of us would go do my job.
So when I moved to the city, I thought, oh, this is going to be better, you know. This is going to be bigger shop, better school, better shop. No way. Because the guys wouldn't talk to me. None of them would talk to me. Like for months. I went around and it was lonely. And then one day, this guy, graduate student, began to talk to me. And we're friends to this day, and I swear it's because he started to communicate. And he wasn't like the other guys, you know, he wasn't macho. He was considerate, he was kind, and he couldn't understand what these other guys were doing. And the other men thought that he was effeminate, and they thought he was queer. And he got to play the outcast of the group. That is until I came along, and then I got to play that role. And then there was the bully. You know, there's always the bully, right? And his name was David, and he was a real pain in the ass, let me tell you. One day I was in there welding, and he came in, and he had this way of laying his stuff out, taking up my space, just laying it out all over everything. I backed up into some of his material, and I cut my arm rather badly, and I was just bleeding all over the place, and I had to go and take stitches, and I was getting very, very angry with him, and I was angry with myself for letting him do that to me. And I came back to the shop, I remember, and he was standing across the room, and he's talking with one of his friends, and he looked up at me, and he said, rather contemptuously, what's the matter with you? And I said to myself, Chris, you've raised your kids all by yourself. You've put yourself through art school alone. You've served thousands of people and waitressed hundreds and hundreds of dinners, and you're going to let this little worm make you miserable? And that really did it. That's what did it. And I said to him, you motherfucking son of a bitch, you come over here and I'll kill you. And he said, calm down, Chris. I was really angry, and he knew it. And I said, you son of a bitch, you come over here and I'll kill you. And you know, he got really scared. He got really frightened. And I remember I said it 3 times. I said, you know, you are the most inconsiderate son of a bitch I've ever known, and you don't deserve to live on this earth. Come over here and I'll kill you. And I didn't care anymore. I would have done it. And you know what? He changed. In an instant, he changed.
What are you doing, Diana?
I'm stretching the backs of my legs.
But don't bounce. You
Why
really
not?
shouldn't be bouncing.
Why not?
You're gonna screw up all your lumbars back there.
Really?
Never bounce a muscle. You just hold tight with it. Breathe in through the nose, out. I can't, don't they teach you that in doctor's school?
No. There's no courses in running
Too
or
bad.
stretching. I always do that.
You're gonna really screw up your back.
How do you know about backs?
As a truck driver, you gotta, that's the first thing that screws you up.
Oh, I
your
bet,
back.
right.
So you gotta, oh. You wanna do it?
Yeah, let's
All
go.
right, 5, 5, slow.
All right.
Okay. God, I'm so stiff. I haven't run in like 5 days.
Really?
I was running like 5 miles. 5 miles every day with my friend Czar. And he sprained his leg. Czar, the Czar of Chicago. That's what I call him. His name is Cesar.
Who is he?
Oh, he's a cook in this greasy spoon that I frequent. He makes a real mean scrambled egg. And we fuck around, you know.
You don't live with him, do you?
Oh, God. Not Czar.
I didn't think
no
so.
No way. No way. What about you? Are you living with someone?
No, not anymore.
So you were?
Yeah, I was.
With him?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell Anna the story. Who was he? Sounds like Heartbreak Hotel or something.
He was a she.
Are you gay or something?
Yeah.
We're fucking out. So who is she?
She's another doctor where I work.
How long did you live together?
$15 months. Exactly.
Doctors count in months, you know? The baby's not a year and a half, the baby's 15 months, you know? So, what happened?
It just didn't work out.
Did she leave you, or did you leave her, or, you know? How did
It just didn't work out.
one of you, like, fell out of love? Is that what happened? Or was it another person involved, or?
You know, I'm starting to feel like I'm being interviewed.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I got such a mouth, you know? I'm just open. I'm just curious, you know? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't really understand that when you start a job, anybody, you go through sort of a period of initiation. You know, it's kind of paying your dues and really proving yourself in the job. And I sort of assumed that I was being treated in a certain way because I was a woman. You might be asked to stay late one day, or when the guys are going to lunch, I might have to stay and clean the truck. Just little things. You know, you do that extra stuff and you earn your position. You earn their respect, basically. And when I started to apprentice people, I thought, I'll do it differently. I thought I would give them all kinds of good feedback and be a little more open and understanding about them starting in the position. And I basically got walked over. You really can't do it that way. I find now when I apprentice people, I put them pretty much through the same stuff that I went through.
I think it would be helpful if there were women who told you how to survive, who said they're going to do this and they'll try to do that. You have to move this way, and this way. And some of us are in that position now. But I think it's an erroneous assumption we're making if we think that these women are going to readily accept our help and regard us with the same kind of respect that they have for men.
Sometimes you can find different ways of doing things, like carrying heavy pieces of lumber, for instance. They're 4 by 6 by 16, and they're heavy and they're unwieldy, and the men carry them on the shoulders. Well, I have a small upper body, so I carry them on my hips. Now, the men can't teach me that. It's something that I just had to find out for myself. Now, as women carpenters, we have to find our own advantages.
What medication is he on? That's fine. No, just restart the IV until the morning when the service comes on. Sure. Bye. I'm sorry, that's going to happen all night because I'm on call tonight. So, she wants to be a carpenter?
I know,
That
really.
sounds great.
I don't think it sounds great at all. I spent the whole conversation trying to talk her out of it.
Why not? You do it, Anna.
I know I do it, but it doesn't mean I want her to do it. I mean, she's young enough. I want her to make something of herself, not have to...
Yeah, but see, I think she really sees all the stuff that you've gotten from your job, and she wants some of that, you know?
She doesn't see what I have from my job at all.
Look, I know it's hard, but, you know, you've also... I mean, look at all the stuff that you've demystified, all the stuff you know how to do. She understands that, and she wants a piece of that.
Listen, Toots, I mean, driving a truck is about as mystifying as ironing or something. I mean, she sees it as a fantasy, this whole thing. She doesn't understand. I mean, I want her to go to school. I want her to...
Hello? Yeah. Well, who wrote that prescription? That combination isn't as bad as some others, but somebody's going to be in a lot of trouble tomorrow morning. No, I want you to watch her tonight. If you see Mac, I want you to tell him to call me right away. Okay. Bye-bye.
I don't know. I mean, I want her to go to school because I want her to feel...
I think it's crazy for her to go back to school. I think she should just be out there in the world and doing a job
There's
already.
no power out there in the world doing a job. I mean, I hear you on the phone. Tell Mac to call me back. You know, there's no Mac that calls me back.
I know that I have something of a privileged life, but I also know that I don't have the kind of power you think I have. You really seem to think that I have it very easy and I have all this power on my job. I don't. I have lots of problems where I work. Take a lot of shit. And it's not easy.
Well, I'll tell you, not too many problems that $60,000 a year couldn't fix. You know what I'm saying?
Hello? Yeah? What's his peak flow? Yeah? Is he on steroids? When was the last dose of aminophylline? How much does she weigh? And him? Okay. What I want you to do is to... Just give him 200 milligrams of aminophylline.
If you work 5 years, you make union scale. If you work 20 years, you make union scale. Our pay never increases. The only increase we do get is once a year at contract negotiations. This year we got 10%. Now, that doesn't keep up with inflation. And $15.40 is all we ever make. We don't get paid vacation. We don't get time off. If I'm sent home in the middle of the day, I don't get paid. If it rains and I have to go home, I don't get paid. If I drive an hour to work and an hour home, at that point, sometimes I've lost money.
There was pretty much a buddy system in place when we started there, and we just didn't understand it at all. You might be on the job and ask the foreman if you can go to the farmer's market or go to the cleaners or do something for your own personal benefit, and he would let you do it. In return, you might have to work overtime, or you would do him a favor. And the first time I was asked to work overtime, I went in waving the rule book, all pissed off, saying, I don't have to do this. And got, all bent out of shape about it. It wasn't that I didn't want to do it. I didn't understand. I didn't know that if I did him a favor, he'd do me a favor later on.
I have noticed that the men ask for help more and more, like carrying a sheet of plywood. And I think that's good. I think the women have done that.
I think the most stressful part of the job is the fact that we're always on call. I mean, they call me up at 11 or 12 at night to tell me to come in to do another shift when I've already been in there doing a shift, that day. It's like the hours are so irregular. I have insomnia now and stuff. I've learned the value of these modular phones, that you can unplug. Oh. Like people say, if you work 4 years outside, you can never go back inside. And I really think there's truth to that. Because, like, out on the road, it is so intoxicating just covering all that space, you know, 125 miles anywhere in the state. You know, you roll down the window, I'd put on a jazz station or a blues station or classical, whatever, you know, bopping around. I'd go home and drop off my laundry, I'd do shopping, you know. There's like a sense of outwitting the company. And I was making good money. You know, there were really good parts to it.
We had to go into a certain alley on a Saturday morning, and everybody was out in the alley. The guys are all out there working on their cars. You know, the place is just packed. So we pull up in the truck. I'm with this other guy who's not my regular partner, and I go up in the bucket, and he's down in the truck feeding me cable, and all of a sudden I hear a lot of noise down beneath me. I mean, right underneath me, there's a fight breaking out. And I know this guy who I'm working with is starting to panic. And so I look down, and he splits. So I grab one of the manhole hooks, and I get myself down, and I get out of the bucket, and I basically have to break it up. There's a couple of Latino guys. I speak some Spanish, so I'm yelling at them in Spanish and getting them to cool out. And, you know, that's the best thing to do. You don't want to call the cops in a situation like that. I don't want to be known as the one who calls the cops.
Safety in our company is a joke. I mean, when I first got trained, they showed us films and slides, and we had lectures about what it is to be safe and all these things that, you know, I couldn't wear sneakers. I couldn't wear a certain jacket I wanted to. I had to learn how to do the windows and everything. Everything was for utmost safety. But when it came to some conditions, they didn't care at all about safety. I mean, they would have us driving through the thickest fog and sleet, hail, rain, you know. I mean, they had us go through the blizzard of '78 and glare ice. Even when the roads were closed by the state police, we were limping around. I mean, I remember working that night, and it took me 4 hours to do a 45-minute job. And then they'd send the next shift out after us. I mean, they don't care about, they say they care about safety, but they don't care about safety. They care about money.
In medical school, on rotation, I would always be the only woman with 8 men. And it was really hard for me because I didn't know how I was supposed to act. You know, I didn't get it. And the men would be standing around and discussing the patient as if they were invisible. And I'd be putting up the bed rail or explaining a procedure, asking them if they were comfortable or not. And I realized, you know, that I was approaching the whole thing like I was a nurse, like my mother, except that I was a doctor. Hello? Hi, Daddy. No, I'm still up. I'm mopping my floor. Oh, you got my letter. What do you think? Why? I don't think you need to be concerned. It's a really good place to work. No, it's really a good job. Yeah, no, I've given it a lot of thought. Well, I haven't said yes yet, but I'm going to. I don't want to go into private practice. I know. I'm sure he's a great doctor, but I don't even like him. I could never work with him. No, it's really what I want to do. County is a very respectable place to work. A lot of my peers work there. I don't think it's the same thing. No, it's not just like when I left medical school. I don't feel like I'm blowing it. You know, I feel like I'm doing something that I really believe in, and I have this opportunity to work. Why? No, Daddy. Uh-huh. I'm never gonna get married. Mm-hmm. Listen, I've got to go now. Please tell Mom that I sent my love, okay? Next week I will. Okay. Bye. And I realized that if I could just force myself not to smile when I talked, it set off this whole chain reaction of a different body language. My expression changed, and my voice lowered, and my stance was different. I was amazed that it worked. Something as simple as not smiling. But you know, you don't want to have to do it that way. I mean, I always want to say, look, you know, we're in this together. I want this and you want that, and let's just figure out how to do it. But you can't do that by yourself.
I sometimes see women being the victim with men. You'll never get what you want that way. They do what I call fogging. And I think women do this because they don't know how to deal with the structures that exist. Instead of challenging them, they just go away. It used to happen to me. Suddenly, I just wouldn't be there anymore. And I think in part, it's not wanting to deal with your anger. It's much easier to fog than to be angry. Or or to take responsibility for what your perceptions are, or to take risks.
Our society is so fragmented. It expects passive women and killer men. You know, I think sometimes that women can get by much more easily than men in being whole, simply because we are not taken so seriously. I believe in that area men have it much more difficult. You know, the gentle men I know have been far more destroyed than the tough women.
And this job is very difficult if you're a single parent. I remember when I worked in an office that one day they were going to take out the phones. And the woman just stormed into the manager's office and said, "What do you mean no phones? We have kids at home and they have to call us." Now, that's one of the fringe benefits of that type of job.
I worked outside on the poles up until my 5th month. The only reason I really came in was just because the weather got really bad. And then I went inside to a clerical job. They can't make you stop working because pregnancy is covered in our contract, and the clericals have the same job, have the same contract as the crafts people. So I could go inside at the same rate of pay. And I'll probably work right up until I deliver, and then afterwards I'll take a 6-week paid leave of absence. You have the option of taking a 6-month leave of absence, which I won't take advantage of because right now my husband's not employed and we really need the money. And actually the hardest part has not been the pregnancy. I think it will be afterwards because there is no provision at all within the company for daycare.
The morning times are really hard if you're a single parent. And let's face it, it's a lot easier if you have someone to get up and fix your breakfast and make your lunch. Like this guy I work with told me, he said, "I told my wife she has to get up and make my breakfast and make my lunch or I'm not bringing home the check. I'm not going to go to work." He said, "So we need the money, so I work." So I asked him, I said, "Does your wife work?" He said, "Yeah, she works part-time. Now, she only works 6 hours a day, plus taking care of the kids, plus fixing his breakfast and lunch, but she doesn't work as hard as we do."
The company thinks that because you get a living wage and good benefits that you owe your life over to them. You know, it's not a 9-to-5 job. Talking about it now, I realize why there's so much like stress and tension between all the drivers working there, because we're all like hooked into everyone's patterns, you know, because if someone doesn't come in, you got to work their shift. So there's this tension of dependency, you know. And the whole thing is, if you're feeling sick, you're out on the road and you're feeling sick, you can't come back in. You can't say, "I'm sick, I want to go home." I mean, you're 200 miles from home, and you just got to keep going.
They usually just promote, and they have to hire a woman. Why? Why do they?
Why do they have to hire a woman?
Well, my friend in personnel, I'm glad you asked. My friend in personnel says that the EOC is wondering why all these women, you know, in these non-traditional jobs are, you know, cool enough to get in, but not to get out of the basement, you know, that we're all skilled. Anyway, they have burned us. This company has burned us for so long, even the EOC can't ignore the smell. And I'm telling you that I have the most seniority. I know the job, and they have to hire a woman or they're going to be in big trouble, believe me.
And you're the best woman they could ever hire.
Dig.
This is great.
I know. I can't. Oh, I had this fight with Czar. I told him this last night, and he says, you know, he says that he can't stand anything that smacks of bosses. And I said, listen, it's not a question of boss here.
No,
it's
really
a question of competency.
And being recognized
And you know what this means? I mean, I feel that this means, if it happens, no more third shifts, no more pulling doubles, no more boredom, no more insomnia, for heaven's sakes, no more drugs, maybe, but you never know.
No more what?
No, I don't know. Anyway,
it's great.
I know.
I'm real excited.
Will you drink for me?
Drink
No,
for
listen.
you, I'll drink to you.
To Miss Boss.
I always thought, I'm going to make a good carpenter. I'm pretty smart. I can figure things out, mentally deal with problems. I'm very good at math. But the work is becoming more routinized, less skilled. The thinking part is being separated out more and more from the physical part. And we're at a disadvantage not being as strong. But on the other hand, the women are more together. We're very serious about becoming good carpenters.
I really wanted to work much more in concert with other people, making decisions collectively and sharing the responsibility. And that just doesn't work in a hierarchy. And the other thing was that I wasn't meeting the traditional expectation of decisive behavior from a doctor. I mean, I felt like I was breaking new ground, but what it was seen as was being wishy-washy and weak and indecisive.
I've seen too many women lose the soft, gentle parts of themselves and become just as gnarled up emotionally and tormented as men. It's much easier just to cut yourself off and imitate. Imitate the aggressor, imitate the men. Then you'll get the power, then you'll get the raises and the promotions.
I will always be different from my colleagues because I've had different reactions to the same experiences because I view them from a different perspective. And I will always be different from women who work in traditionally female roles. It has something to do with being in three worlds: being a woman, being a black woman, and working in a white male world. You see how it moves. You're not stuck in one place or another. There is this fantasy of an integrated life. And we think that we're split and white men have this wholeness. But that's a myth too. Where are they whole? They are never forced to see the world other than from their own perspective. And if we're not careful, we spend our whole lives thinking something's wrong with us.
Okay.
Diana! Anna! Hi! How are you? Oh, you're not sleeping.
No, I'm not. I'm in the middle of working and I'm real hassled. You can only stay for a couple of minutes.
I'm great.
Okay.
Great. Wow, you're all up here. I expected you to. Well, I didn't really expect you to be asleep, but
I'm working.
But great.
I'm in the middle.
What are you doing? God, your
I'm-
desk is such a mess.
Doing
Look
the
at
lecture.
this.
I'm doing the lecture series on social medicine.
Oh, that sounds
I know.
intense.
I really need this stuff to be here now.
Oh, God, you know, there's something about these medical journals. I was thinking about them last time I was here. Oh, my God, a large,
Hey,
lobated, pale rectoral.
What's
Oh, God, it has been so rough. I can't tell you. Listen to this. You know, Monday they had me working on first shift, you know? They said, okay, first shift on all week, you know? Then Tuesday I come in, they go, no, we don't need you till second. And then what happens? I say I do second. Big deal. It's still in the day, right? Okay. Then this guy gets sick and doesn't show up for third. I gotta work fucking second and third and then first again Wednesday. And like I'm a maniac. I'm like a wild zombie. I just can't, I really can't believe it. It's, you know? So I've been trying to get to sleep, you know, and my mind is like wandering and I'm like doing...
Now. I've got a real headache and I'm,
Oh,
just,
sure.
I got too much to do, you know?
Really? It's hard all over.
Yep.
This is how it is, you know? Oh, God. So anyway, I told my boss, fuck, I'm not going to work these fucking third shifts anymore because I can't get to sleep. So what I came here to ask is, if you knew of something that can get me to sleep, you know? 'Cause I know
I
you
do.
You do?
Yeah,
Great.
I always do chamomile tea. And you can do calcium, too, if you're having a hard time.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
No, honest.
You mean inject calcium right into the vertebral cortex or something? I mean, that's what I'd have to do. I can't take no herbs
Lie
and
down
shit.
in your bed, drink some tea, breathe
I don't
in
believe
and out.
in herbs.
Well, believe. It'll work.
I mean, what am I? I mean,
listen, I got an iron tank for a system here. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That shit doesn't cut it for me. I've been drinking tequila and reciting Cervantes all evening in the bar. They practically threw me out. You know? I'm too exhausted to even play my clarinet. Listen, what I really need is a script for, like, you know, a Valium or some barbiturate, you know, something.
Valium? Come on, Anna. I'm not going to give you that crap.
What do you mean? Everyone's on Valium. It's even
Well,
on
not
TV
in my
shows.
circle.
Valium. Don't you give it to
rotten
patients?
for you. You're not my patient.
But I'd like to be.
Well, the
Let
doctor's
me-
not on call right now.
Okay, well. Well, the doctor's not on call right now. Look at that. I mean, I don't see why you think it's so bad for me. Valium is just a fucking muscle relaxer. You know what I'm saying?
I know what it is, Anna.
I mean, why are you playing God? Does it seem like I'm taking advantage of you here? Coming here and saying, doctor, give it to me, and if you don't do it. I mean, I won't be your friend? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I asked you for something to break this fucking cycle. Because if I fall asleep on the road, if they ask me to do third again, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Look at these bags. Look at my bags. Doc, please.
All right.
A little script.
All right. I'll get you something.
Just a little script, you know, nothing. God, I can't even read this shit. I can't even focus. Oh. What's this?
Here's a couple of Valiums. They're Valium 5s, and I want you to cut them in half before you take them.
I know Valium, just...
I know. Okay.
I'll need both of them, believe me. That's your stash, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
What else do you have in there, Diana?
I have my bathtub. I have my sink. I have my toothbrush.
This is real interesting. You gave me this whole song and dance. You gave me this whole song and dance about how it's bad for me and everything, and you have your own stash. What are you on, amphetamines right now?
Yeah, I shoot up every day. Come on, it's time for you to go.
I think you're a fucking hypocrite.
Let's go, Anna.
No, I just do. You doctors, I feel like you're all alike. I mean, I appreciate this, but this is really amazing. How it's good for you and it's not for me. It's real interesting.
Try and get some rest, will you?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, really, I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. Just go on. You have to leave. I just have to get this done. I've got to get it done. I'm really having a hard time.
Listen, I can't leave with you feeling like this.
Oh,
I can't.
God.
I can't. I wouldn't even be able to get to sleep with a whole bottle of Valiums. Listen, why don't you let me give you a massage? You've been working so hard. I mean, you're always the one who's nurtured. Look how tense you are. You're like granite or something. You should take a Valium.
Give me yours.
God. You've always been right there for me, and I was so insensitive. I'm sorry. I really care about you.
That feels good.
I guess I should go. God, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. My mouth
It's
always...
okay. It's all right, Anna. I hope you can sleep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll call you tomorrow, okay?
Should I close the door?
Yeah, please.
I'll be home around 6.
Okay.
I'm a girl, and as such, I'm either treated as a nice girl who doesn't joke or banter with the guys, or I'm treated as someone that they can tell dirty jokes to. You know, at first, they would curse, and I would say, oh, forget it, I curse too. And then I decided, no, I'm not going to say anything to them. I mean, you're either accepted as one of the guys and you get it all in one package, or you get none of it. There is no in between. And I decided to be a nice girl because I don't need any more hassles.
There's all kinds of contradictions working with these guys in the garage. You know, I thought the better we got at our job, the more we'd be accepted and respected. But in fact, it has had the opposite effect. This guy said to me not too long ago that he really didn't have pride in his job anymore because it was a job a woman could do. You know, and on the other hand, these guys are really great to work with. There's all kinds of camaraderie in the garage, and you spend a lot of time with them, and you really get to know them, and I feel like they're really interested in me as a person, my life outside of the job. I'm remodeling the baby's room right now, and they help me do all the wiring, and they're real interested in what I'm doing.
One day I had this conversation with this guy, and he was talking about someone's big tits. And I said, you know, women suffer a lot from the criticism they receive about their breasts. And the next day, the pictures went up. And I don't mean pinups, the hardcore stuff. I went in, and in nailing up the pictures, they'd nail them through the crotches. They'd nail them through the nipples and the crotches. So I walked in, said, who's the rapist here? They ignored me. Finally, I said, well, why don't you hang these up in the john, because I don't want to come in and catch one of you jerking off or something. In a way, I didn't want them to know how I felt, because they just think, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And I felt like screaming. The kitchen needs to be redecorated for the new cooks.
Once when I was interning, we had this girl who was brought in. She was 7 years old, maybe younger. And she'd been raped by her older brother's boyfriend, who was 15. And she didn't even know what had happened to her. She had excretions on her legs and a lot of pus coming from her vagina. And it turns out that not only has she been abused on that one time, but she's complaining of this pain in her hand, you know, and arthritis, which was due to a gynecoccal infection, which is CLAP. And that means that this has been going on for months. And she didn't even have words for it, you know. She's called it, "We played love." Everybody knew what was going on. And the male pediatricians who were on duty at the time related to the whole thing by discussing how they'd done pelvic exams on very young girls, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old, and how when they had tried to put the speculum in, they would say to her, you know, relax, and the kid would say back, you mean like I'm playing love, which of course meant that she had sex all the time. And they were obviously embarrassed, and they were laughing and really trying to compete with each other to see who could tell the most sordid story. I was so angry. I started in on them, and I said that 20% of all sexually abused children were under 6, and of that, 90% were girls who'd been abused by adult males or teenage boys, and that statistically it happened with just as much frequency in professional families as it did in the slums. We just didn't see them in city hospitals. I can't remember all that I said. But they reported me to the director, who called me into his office and really gave it to me, but in a very nice way. He told me that I had acted very immaturely and that I had to learn how to handle my emotions if I was going to be a doctor. He said to me, "You're a doctor. Act like one." Hi. How are you?
Not good.
Great. I've been waiting for you. I have to tell you about this party I went to last night. It was wonderful. It was in the Hancock building. You know where that is?
Yeah, I think I know where that is.
Have you ever been there? Anyway, it was,
How you doing today?
I just pour it in.
right in there.
Pour it in, Lil.
Can I have some more tea water when you have a chance?
Sure. Do you know what you want?
I'll have the usual.
The usual? Get you anything.
Anyway, this was the best party I've ever been to. They had, for food, they had cheeses sculptured like mermaids and fabulous champagne. Oh, I wish you'd been there. It was wonderful.
I don't wish I'd been there.
What's with you, Anna? What's going on?
I had a hard day.
Yeah?
No, this one really takes the gold star, tell you.
What happened?
Found out I didn't get the promotion.
What do you mean you didn't get the promotion?
I didn't get the promotion.
Well, what happened? What'd they tell you?
They didn't tell me anything. It was all my fantasy.
Oh,
They hired a woman off the street, a woman with a college degree in business.
Oh,
She's never even seen a truck in her life.
Oh,
Sure.
I'm sorry.
You go special?
Thanks.
Thanks.
Anna.
Oh.
I mean, the way I figured it is that they needed a woman. They didn't want me, and so they hired her.
And I could barely go back in there tomorrow.
Oh, no.
I know.
And they didn't say one thing to you?
No, no one said anything. You don't understand. It was my idea. The whole thing was my idea. And in the meantime, my head is turning to mush. See, I counted on this so much,
I know.
you know?
I know.
I mean, you know, Diana, how is she gonna know? Tell me how she's gonna know how to interface, you know, 10 drivers over 125 miles in 8 hours, you know?
She's not gonna know that.
And once again, I have a boss that doesn't know a shit. 6 years I stayed in the basement of that place. And I'm a nothing, you know, big... Oh, fuck, I can't... I want a cigarette so bad.
I know. You quit smoking, though. Don't start for them.
The whole thing is, I mean, I know I can go in there. I can go in there tomorrow. The guys are used to me. They know me. You know, I can walk in there tomorrow and... You know, I'd hire a swing shift tomorrow. I mean, I could just, like, walk right in and do it.
The point is, they don't want you to do it. They don't want you to do it well. You know, they remember what they did to you when you started working there. Remember all the hard times they gave you and everything that they did to you? What if you did that back to them?
I'd never do that.
Well, I know you'd never do that, but they don't know that. All they can see is, what if we got her in there and she started giving it to us? They can't let that happen. They can't afford to have you do it. You changed everything for them, you remember? Everything, all that you went through. You changed everything at that place. Nothing has ever been the same since that.
And now I'm stuck.
I know.
I'm stuck.
But
you know how long I counted on this thing?
I know. But you know what? You're never going to get that job. They'd never give it to you.
I want it.
I know, I know. Oh,
fucking shit.
Oh. Let's get out of here, okay? Come on.